Nothing led Dusty Rhodes the American Dream while I was down. Secondly, I want to thank Jim Crockett Promotions for waiting and taking the time because I know how important it was. Starcade 85 it is to the wrestling fans, it is to Jim Crockett Promotions. And Dusty Rhodes the American Dream, with that weight, got what I wanted. Ric Flair, the world's heavyweight champion. I don't have to say a lot more about the way I feel about Ric Flair. No respect, no honor. There is no honor among thieves in the first place. He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work. They got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time. And Ric Flair, you put hard times on this country by taking Dusty Rhodes out. That's hard time. And we all had hard times together. I admit I don't look like the athlete of the day supposed to look. My belly's just a little big. My hand is just a little big. But brother, I am bad and they know I'm bad. And there were 2 bad people. One was John Wayne and he's dead, brother. And the other one's right here.
And we're definitely right here. Welcome, everybody. Captain Lou and Matt here with you. The Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza live here on the 12 Ounce Sports Network and Zingo TV channel 761. Yours truly, Captain Lou, along with my longtime tag team partner, Matt Gamlin. Matt, great to be with you here tonight. Hey, let's get this debut program started. Let's talk some pro wrestling, shall we?
Yeah, sounds great. Good to be here.
Well, we had what we're going to do here on our show is just kind of give you a heads up. We're going to go each week. We're going to talk the latest of what's going on in the world of professional wrestling. Tonight, we're going to basically go with the WWE because they had just finished one of probably their top 4 pay-per-views that they have each year. You know, it's Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. And, of course, with with the Royal Rumble just finishing, we're going to concentrate on that. And also, we'll talk about what's in store for the road to WrestleMania. And also, towards the end of the show, the last 15 minutes or so, what we're going to do on our program is we're going to go back and look back at history of what happened in professional wrestling that might have helped change the landscape of pro wrestling, if you will, as Dusty Rhodes would say. So, Matt, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to be on every other Wednesday from 8 until 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on the network, 12ouncesportsradionetwork.com and or 12ouncesportsnetwork.com, I'm sorry, Zingo TV channel 761. So we hope that you enjoy the show. We love your feedback. You can send anything on Twitter or on Facebook or my email address, which is at info@captainlou.net. So, Matt, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the Royal Rumble. As we mentioned, one of the top 4 pay-per-views that the WWE has, and it kind of sets the stage for the granddaddy, the Super Bowl of the WWE. That's WrestleMania. That's coming up the 1st of May. But we had a pretty good card Sunday night with the Royal Rumble. Your thoughts right now on what you thought about the Royal Rumble in general?
Overall, I thought top to bottom, it was just a great show. It had very few flaws to it, I think. The right people won, I think, all around. Both Rumbles I thought were very well done, especially the Women's Rumble I thought was great. Just great matches all around. The match with KO and Roman, great match. Very few flaws, and that's the thing about the Rumble. It's always so highly anticipated. Even in a bad Rumble, it's still a fun show to watch.
Well, let's go through the card. We'll go from top to bottom. We'll go through each match, and I'll get your thoughts on the matches. The pre-show had the women's tag team championship match, and I wasn't really surprised at the outcome. Ric Flair is, this, he's my favorite wrestler of all time. And there's something about this angle that he's got right now. I just don't like it. To me, it kind of cheapens him a little bit. I kind of had a feeling the outcome was going to happen. I don't know. I hope they get over this angle as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's tough. I think one of the biggest problems with it right now, it's tough to see where they're going with this.
Yes.
Like, what's the end goal here? And also, I think Charlotte's, at this point in her career, is just a better heel than a babyface. They have tried to run with her as a babyface over the last couple of years, and she's just better now that she's the more established top guy star or top woman star. I think she's just a better heel, given her character. And just trying to push her as a babyface, really out of nowhere, it's a little odd.
Oh, I agree. And I thought on Monday Night Raw we could talk a little bit about it after our break. They kind of hinted maybe of a little bit of a breakup between Asuka and Charlotte, as partners. She, just by the promo that they did before their triple threat match.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen that coming, but not maybe when exactly we didn't know, but I think eventually that was going to happen. And hopefully this could maybe lead to another rematch between the two, maybe with a different outcome.
Well, I hope so. And they're two of the best workers in the business, Asuka and Charlotte Flair. You can say what you want about Charlotte, but I think that she's always been, a grade A worker in the company.
Yeah.
And Asuka too. I'm glad they've got the belt on her because she had quite the run at NXT, and after kind of a sluggish start, I think that she's getting the run that she deserves.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, then we led off the program with Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre. I was worried about this match. I was worried tremendously. I like what they did. I really did. I think, McIntyre deserved to win. I just could not see where they could put the belt on Goldberg right now.
Yeah, well, it would have made no sense. It would have been basically like what they did with The Fiend. You push Drew for all these months for him to lose in 30 seconds to Goldberg, especially when it's babyface. That's when you have the established star put over the younger guy, and they made the perfect call there. It was good for what it was, and the right guy won.
I have to say that had to have been one of the worst jackhammers I think I've seen Goldberg do.
Sadly, it's not the worst, unfortunately.
No, tell us a little bit about what you think the worst jackhammer was.
Well, it's between two, really. I think the worst was his against The Undertaker a couple years ago, but you have to throw in the one where he basically gave The Fiend a suplex.
Yeah, I mean, God love Bill Goldberg. He was great 20-some years ago. When he first came in, it was a pop that you hadn't seen in a long time, but my goodness, I know he's got the contract where he wrestles, 2 shows a year or whatever it is, and he was able to get that from management, from WWE, but I'm just so happy that they didn't put the strap on Goldberg to win the Royal Rumble, to win the Raw Championship, and lead us on with that, because it just it would have really stunted McIntyre, in my opinion.
Yeah, and exactly, and I really try not to hate on Goldberg, but even it's been frustrating the way they've used him at times. I think I think they can use him in ways that works. He can be a great attraction, and he's very. I mean, there's no one like Goldberg, and you got to use that to your advantage. And I just think you don't necessarily need him in the title picture.
No, I agree. Next up on the card was the match between Sasha Banks and Carmella, and I got to tell you, Matt, you and I have talked about this on recent Captain Lou extravaganzas. And I love the improvement of Carmella.
Mhm.
If you'd have told me 3 years ago that she'd be, not really main eventing, but in the championship picture and having a legitimate shot at winning, I just love her heel work. I think she has improved leaps and bounds in 3 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Her character work has always been there, and I think the ring work has finally caught up. And I think right now she's the total package. She has been just great in this new role, and Sasha's been the perfect one to help put her over as a threat now.
And her mic work to me has improved greatly. And again, her in-ring ability, she's gotten a few more moves, and I just like, she's more believable, and I think that's huge.
Yeah.
And I would not have been disappointed if she would have got the belt. I don't know if she will. I don't know if they're going to continue that program with Sasha Banks and her. I don't know that, but I wouldn't be disappointed if they did.
Yeah, and just she's got even more confidence with the way she carries herself in that character. It's like you said, it's even more believable now.
Yeah, and then this Reginald guy, I like how he's more for comic relief.
Yeah, I've definitely been loving those two's interactions.
It's funny because you don't see a whole lot of managers anymore, and he's about the closest I think besides Paul Heyman. And I kind of like that aspect for the heel. He doesn't do any mic work, which is good. They don't really need him to,
No.
So, and it was a good match, and again, it was graded, I think, a B by some of the sites, and that's solid. It could have maybe gone a little bit longer, but I can go along with it for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was a very solid match. And Carmella is just continuing to shine.
Well, everybody, I want to mention too that Matt is on our Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza guest line, which is sponsored, by the way, by Ken Ryan at Voya Financial Advisors. Give him a call, 517-420-5669. That's Ken Ryan at Voya Financial Advisors. Again, that number is 517-420-5669. You're watching the initial broadcast of the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network and Zingo TV Channel 761. You'll be able to see a replay of the show on my website, which is captainlou.net, and also on our website, the 12-Ounce Sports Network. We're talking with Matt Gamlin, my tag team partner, as we go over Monday Night Raw, over the Royal Rumble. We will get to Monday Night Raw and preview SmackDown, and also kind of get an idea of what to look ahead to for the Road to WrestleMania season, which it's going to fly by before you know it. It's going to be, the first weekend of April. We're just going to go in sequence how they did it on the show. And the Women's Royal Rumble, Bayley and Naomi started out, and then Bianca Belair came in. Now, we all know who won. The first part of it I thought was really good. Give me your impressions overall on the Women's Royal Rumble match.
Oh, I thought it was a fantastic Rumble. The first two entrants, Bayley and Naomi, good picks for that. I will say right now, I think Naomi is one of the most underutilized performers that WWE has.
Yes.
It is criminal. And what a showcase for Bianca Belair. And for that matter, Rhea Ripley. Oh. I would have been totally fine with her winning too, but they made the right call with Belair winning. In that post-match promo, it makes you want to side with her even more. I love the prospect of her and Sasha at Mania.
That's going to be a great match. They kind of teased it a little bit, the last couple of weeks on SmackDown, but now they really can. And I agree with you. I think there's no doubt she's going to go to SmackDown. Rhea Ripley, I like her talent. I think her in-ring talent is amazing. I think she does a great job in-ring.
Yeah, and I think probably the best thing, if they do go with Belair and Sasha, will be the promo work, because Belair will be the more natural babyface, and Sasha, I think, it'll kind of allow her to be maybe even a bit of a de facto heel in the situation. And I think that'll work just so well.
You know, and I like the versatility of Bianca Belair because she started out as a heel manager over on Raw and came over to SmackDown, and now she's turned babyface. And who knows? Maybe she has the ability. Maybe they might. I know the promo was amazing. Don't get me wrong. But they have that ability to turn her. And we know what the WWE is famous for.
Yeah.
They can turn them on a dime. But yeah, the potential is limitless for her and Sasha Banks.
Oh yeah, and in NXT she was solid as a heel, but after a while you didn't want to boo her.
No.
That's kind of the problem they run into.
The only issue I had with what happened in the Women's Royal Rumble was with Alexa Bliss. I'm a little dumbfounded by that, Matt. Maybe you can enlighten me. She came in at 27, I believe it was, and she came in and made a little bit of an impact. And when they started to dim the lights or whatever to turn her character, she got thrown over the top rope. I still don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it, it was almost too logical of a move. Like, yeah, if she starts to transform, get her out of there now.
Yeah.
But how often do you actually see that happen? Like, you wanted to see what she was gonna do, but yeah, it almost seems as if they were kind of in a bind. They already had her in the Rumble, but they didn't want You notice they didn't even have the Fiend on Royal Rumble at all. So maybe that had something to do with it. Who knows? That was a bit of a head scratcher, though.
It was. I mean, do you think that she's going to continue her feud with Asuka, or the mini feud that they had on Raw, or do you think they're going to pay more? I don't know. Pit Charlotte Flair against her. Obviously, she's got Lacey Evans to deal with. I don't know how long they're going to continue that feud. That could be up to WrestleMania. Who knows? But
yeah, it seems like at the very least they're going to continue the thing with Orton at least for a little while longer because of what we saw in the Edge and Orton match on Raw. So that might be what kind of occupies her and the Fiend's time for now.
Well, yeah, it's going to be amazing to see what they do with her. I like Alexa Bliss's transformation into this new character. I think it really shows her talent potential and her versatility. And I think they can run with her as part of the Wyatt family. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see where they take that next step. It was funny to see how Natalya came in and then she got knocked out, and I just, overall, I thought it was a very good Royal Rumble. Didn't take quite an hour, which is good. Of course, you had R-Truth coming in with his shenanigans, which it's funny, Matt, not to steer away too far from the Royal Rumble, but I watched an old clip of R-Truth when he was in Impact.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, this guy's been around forever with the WWE. Yeah. You and I have talked about this, how he's really embraced this character. And I'll tell you what, it's keeping him in the WWE.
Oh, yeah.
And it's making him some money.
Yeah, he's done incredibly well with it. I love the bit with him and Alicia Fox. I'll tell you, though, what made me pop the most, this might surprise you, was Jillian Hall.
Oh.
And Billy Gilly. Their very brief alliance.
Do you remember when she was in the WWE when she had that thing on her neck that with the Boogeyman? The Boogeyman bit it?
Very vaguely.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's about when you started really paying attention to it, when she was kind of aligned with JBL.
Yeah, and even in that Rumble, I was like, wow, I forgot how good she could actually be in the ring.
And that singing.
Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't ever remember her wrestling.
She wasn't bad. She was more of a valet, but she was.
Yeah, exactly.
They treated her kind of as a sideshow because of that thing that they had her put on her neck. And then, of course, the Boogeyman bit it and ate it. And it's like, oh, my God. Because yeah, she was almost like JBL's valet, but you know. Anyways,
Yeah.
moving on, we got 2 matches left to talk about. You know, I I was a little leery about the last man standing match because I didn't know how much they could top what they have done before. Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens has been one heck of a storyline, and I thought they really, really did well with that match.
Yeah, I don't think they could have done that match much better. I mean, I think they did that well because, you know, if you're going to have Owens lose for a third time, make him look as good as possible.
Yes.
And I think they did just that.
I agree. You know, the spots that they did, I marvel at it. How can they walk away from that? It's going to be great to see you know, Kevin Owens on Friday, how banged up he was. And, you know, and he's a performer. I mean, he's solid. He's always there, always showing up. And, you know, Roman Reigns, what can you say? He's taken that heel character and he's run with it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what is next for him. Is it really going to be against Edge, or are they going to have a stopgap in between that? But I think you know, a program with him and Edge could be incredible.
Oh yeah, the cool thing about Roman right now, there's so many potential ideas you could go with him, and they all just sound so exciting now.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Oh yeah, you know, and it was, you know, you know, I noticed that Jey Uso wasn't there. Then I found out that he's out hurt, and it sounds like he could be gone for a while.
Yeah, which is a big blow. You know, he had caught a lot of momentum, and really buying him as a legit single star. You know, I would be interested to see what they may do with both of the Usos once they're both healthy again.
Yeah, could they turn the angle maybe where, you know, Roman Reigns did this to him and he, you know, I don't know. Like you said, the possibilities are endless for Jey Uso, and I'm with you. I'm glad, or I'm really been impressed with this singles run, and it showcases his talent. And when his brother comes back, it could be a good stable, or it could really turn into an awesome storyline between the three of them.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows you individually just how good not only him, but the other Uso is as well. Both Jimmy and Jay are both just really talented dudes. You know, maybe they go the way or the route of when Edge got injured and Chris Jericho just buried him on TV as a partner, and then they come back with a vengeance.
Well, that leads us to the last match. Well, it wasn't the last match of the night. We kind of did a little crossover. The Men's Royal Rumble, Edge and Randy Orton, 1 and 2, and it was kind of cool because the tables were turned. How Edge attacked Randy Orton, and he couldn't even make it to the ring. And then you had Sami Zayn coming in at number 3, and you know, him and Edge, you know, him and Orton, you know, it was a great start to that Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then,
absolutely,
you know, then you had Mustafa Ali coming in. You know, I think someone that you really liked in the NXT version was Damian Priest coming into the Royal Rumble. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good call, actually. And, you know, it seems like they're bringing him up now full time to the main Raw, or to Raw or SmackDown, which I think is a good call. Seemed like he had kind of really nothing else to do in NXT. Yeah. And I think he's ready. To me, like, a lot of comparisons have been drawn to Baron Corbin, which I can see. I think he's Corbin, but with a better ability to run as a face, and a better moveset, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can go along with that. It was nice to see Seth Rollins coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm really interested to see what they do with him now on SmackDown. What he's gonna, if he's gonna be a heel, if he's gonna be a face.
Yeah.
You know, if he's gonna be one of those stars that people love that is a heel. You know.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what they do with him. And
yeah, you know, I think they'll still run with him as a heel, but yeah, I really look forward to what they're going to do with it, especially around Mania time. Like, he could have an absolute classic as usual at Mania.
You know, and I like what they're doing with Big E. And, you know, I thought Bobby Lashley did pretty good in the Rumble. And, of course, you had Braun Strowman coming in at number 30. You know, that I tell you, he looks ripped.
Mm-hmm. Looking real jack, baby.
That's right. So, overall, you were pleased with Edge coming out on top?
Yeah. I think that, hindsight being what it is, you know, I think it was the right call. I couldn't see many other people winning. You know, Daniel Bryan, I know is a favorite, and I would love to see that happen. There was a part of me that was just like, I don't know if I see that happening.
I don't know.
I think Edge was the right choice. You know, it's such a great comeback story, and you know, fans want it.
Yeah, and I think I just don't know if Daniel Bryan's got the it factor anymore like he used to have. I mean, he is still a popular babyface, but you're right. I think Edge has got it right now, as opposed to him, and I think it was a great run to have him. So.
Yeah, I think Bryan winning would have worked, and you know they would have had months to build that up too. And you know, Bryan, he's an established star. Even if he hangs around in the mid card for a while, he's one of those guys you could easily propel right back up there.
Well, we're going to step aside, take a couple-minute break. We come back, we'll turn our attention to Monday Night Raw, what happened on Monday night, and we'll preview SmackDown. And again, we'll give kind of a look forward to see what's in store for the road to WrestleMania. With, you know, we've got Fastlane coming up and whatnot. So don't go anywhere. You're watching the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza live on the 12 Ounce Sports Network and Zingo TV channel 761.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done. We're pretty good at solving problems. COVID-19 is the biggest challenge we've had to face. But challenges are what motivate us. Like flying masks to our employees around the world. We're doing everything we can to get you what you need, and doing everything we can to keep our people safe. I'm former Navy pilot Sarah Rhodes, and I'm proud to lead our Amazon Air network.
This is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
And we're number one, and we're back here on the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza. Yours truly, Captain Lou, along with my sidekick, my tag team partner, about ready to jump off the top of the cage, just like we saw Shane McMahon do against The Undertaker live when we were in Dallas for, what was it, WrestleMania 32. And
Yes,
I'll tell
sir.
you, it was a lot of fun. Man, what a spectacle that was, eh, Matt? It was
Oh yeah.
100,000 people, and we had the perfect setting for it. We were staying in a motel, 2 blocks away?
Yep.
And the sights, the sounds, they put on a hell of a show. And WrestleMania is going back there next year, as a matter of fact. This year they're going to be in Tampa still. And I understand. I heard their goal is to get 30,000 fans there. What do you think? You think they can pull that off by April?
Well, it is WWE, and if they have any shot of doing it, they will. Let's remember when the pandemic first happened. There was a lot of rumor that they weren't even going to do shows, or that they really shouldn't do shows, but they persisted. So if they have any chance to do it, I think they will.
I think they will too, and I think also a lot's going to depend. I think they're going to take notes on what happens this Sunday with the Super Bowl. They're playing it in Tampa. I think they're going to have 22,000 people in the stands. Obviously, it's a little different now because the ring is not going to have to use the 100-yard field, so they can fit a few more people in the stands. Yeah. And I think the wrestling fans, we're a special breed, and I think if they let them in, then they could get 30,000 easy. What did I hear? Tickets for the Super Bowl are going for the cheap seats are like $50,000. It's amazing right now.
God.
You can imagine what the ticket prices for WrestleMania are going to be. But
and the thing is with NFL, they're just getting more and more expensive.
Oh, 100%.
It's insane.
One thing we want to mention too before we get to Monday Night Raw. A reminder for those that are WWE fans, they're going to be going to Peacock, which the WWE Network and everything. And it's kind of nice because it's, the price is cut in half unless you want the package with no commercials. But to me, the commercials don't bother me. It's just like watching regular TV. Yeah. And it's half the price. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, I was floored when I first saw that. But when you see what they got out of it, then you're kind of, okay, all right, that makes sense.
The old man McMahon, he's, he might have taken one too many concussions, or those two blown quads on that one show might have altered his thinking a little bit, but he's no dummy. He still knows how to make money, and then, my kudos off to Vince.
Yeah, doesn't even matter if they're getting record low ratings for Raw when they can sell the network for $1 billion.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely amazing. Well, right now we are officially in the season called The Road to WrestleMania. I know we have Fastlane, and we really, that pay-per-view coming up, and we don't know what's on it, although, Matt, you and I talked yesterday off the air a little bit about they might be doing some Elimination Chamber matches at that pay-per-view. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's either that or they're going to just run their own standalone show.
Okay.
But yeah, it remains to be seen.
That would be kind of neat to see if they set something up for a WrestleMania championship match where, if we find out if Edge is whoever he's going to face, maybe Raw could do their own if he's not going to take on Drew McIntyre. That could be kind of an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the thing with Edge too. It's kind of forgotten. There's also the possibility of him maybe going to NXT. I know he's going there this Wednesday for a segment.
Wow, could you imagine him and Finn Balor?
Oh, that'd be incredible.
I would love to see that, and it's
yeah. Or Finn Balor currently is scheduled to face Pete Dunne. I think around, I can't remember exactly when. It might be WrestleMania season.
Oh,
but
wow.
Man, imagine Pete Dunne and Edge.
Oh my God. That I would pay to see that for sure. That would be a fantastic match.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Edge, like we said in our last segment, he won the Men's Royal Rumble. He came on Raw, and he did battle with Randy Orton. But before that, we had the opening segment where he came out to talk to Drew McIntyre, and then we had Sheamus come in. And I got to tell you, I loved it. I loved the promo. You knew Sheamus was going to turn. And he finally came through with it. I loved it. I would like to see a program with him and Drew McIntyre. I just don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be cool for a Mania program, but realistically, I see it more as kind of a stopgap before something bigger.
And then, of course, we had the Raw match with Edge and Randy Orton. And of course, you had Alexa Bliss come in, sitting on the top rope, and the blood coming out of her mouth. And, of course, that distracted Randy Orton. Edge got the win. So is that going to be, do you think that puts a closure on this on this feud between Edge and Randy Orton?
I feel like it does. They had that third rubber match, and it seems like Randy's just not done with the Fiend quite yet.
Right.
So
what I like about it, Matt, is that they're keeping in the dark the Fiend, and I just the anticipation of it to see when he's going to appear, and if he's going to be a totally different character or different look. What do you think might happen with Bray Wyatt?
That's a great question, and you're right. It raises the intrigue level for when he does come back. I honestly hope they don't modify it too much, because I've loved this version of the Fiend or of Bray Wyatt.
Yes.
Personally, I would have loved to see him show up at the Rumble, but have him first come out as like the Firefly Funhouse host first, kind of like what they did with Mick Foley in '98.
Yeah, I agree.
Three faces of Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options with him right now and Randy Orton. My thing is, what kind of a match would they have at WrestleMania? Would it be a Hell in a Cell type of a match? I mean, what are they going to? What kind of would it be a cinematic match? I mean, there's so many different ways to look at that.
Yeah. I think it would lean more probably towards a cinematic match, like maybe even another Firefly Funhouse match.
Okay, now I could go along with that.
Really establish that match.
I want to talk to you about what happened on Raw too. Bobby Lashley and Riddle, they had their match. Of course, Lashley locked on the Hurt Lock and wouldn't let it go. He got disqualified. MVP kind of looked like, he added a little bit of doubt to what he thought was going on in that, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I definitely do too. It adds to the brutality of, or like the viciousness of Bobby Lashley. The fact that his own manager is kind of whoa, easy. But I don't think this is any sign of like a split necessarily. I think that maybe some people might be theorizing. It's just to kind of like maybe put over Bobby in a way. But I don't think the feud with him and Riddle is done quite yet.
I would love to see him in a program with Drew McIntyre in the summer.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what they're doing right now, building him up as this big brute, and I think if there's any breakup in the Hurt business, it's going to be with, the tag team champs. You can see it. Cedric Alexander's kind of playing it up where, he's confused and whatnot. I think you could see that first before anything else happening.
Yeah. I think we have to see Bobby Lashley and Brock at some point.
Oh, my God.
We were teased with that match in 2018.
Yes.
Bobby Lashley even pins Roman clean at Extreme Rules, I believe. It was the pay-per-view before SummerSlam.
Yep.
And then Roman faces Brock anyway for the title.
Yeah, and I don't understand that, Matt, and I agree with you. I think that that's something we have to see. And just real quickly down the rest of Monday Night Raw. Again, we talked about the Hurt Business winning. A little bit of, dissension between Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. What did you think of the number one contenders match for the tag belts? I totally get it myself with Lana, because then she can go up against the tag champs again. Give me your thoughts on that match.
Yeah, I thought it was a move that made sense out of anybody, because that just had the most storyline connection, and it gets Natalya something to do too. And
right.
Lana could finally maybe get some real sweet revenge, maybe on the tag champs finally.
And it was fun to see Carlito. I forgot to mention him in the Royal Rumble. Great to see him back. He spits in the face of people who aren't cool. I love it.
Yeah.
And he got the
I thought he was
tag.
a real underused guy in WWE too.
Oh yeah, and he's another one. Back in the day, I thought he had some great momentum.
Yeah.
He had a nice program with Ric Flair, and after that, it just kind of fizzled a little bit. And now he's got the opportunity to come back. From what I understand, what I've read, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not going to read the dirt sheets. I try not to read them because I like to stay surprised. But with Carlito, I understand he's getting his directing
Producer
tryout, right?
Yeah.
To see if he's going to work behind the scenes there, and I think that's great for him. I think you can ease him in, you can work him into a program. I loved it, and I hope for nothing but success with him because I think he's a very solid worker.
Oh, definitely. He was like one of like a group of many just solid, dependable mid card guys in like the mid 2000s that it could have just done so much more, and they were always just talented guys. Like people like him, Benjamin, Mr. Kennedy, all those guys.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about Mr. Kennedy. We could talk about these guys for a whole show.
Probably one of my favorite entrances.
Oh, heck yeah. We'll have to get that for our next show. We'll find his promo and we'll get it on. Finally, before we go to break, we got a few minutes before we go to break because I want to end the show talking about this day in history. Coming up on SmackDown, leading into the road to WrestleMania, what do you think is next for Kevin Owens? We talked about it a little bit before the break with that great match he had with Roman Reigns. What do you think is next for Kevin Owens?
Yeah, I think he'll definitely break away from the feud with Roman. It would have been cool to see him in more of a feud with Jay, maybe, but obviously he's injured, so it really remains to be seen what they're going to do with him. But I sure hope they do something with him for Mania because he sure deserves it.
Could you see? The only thing I could see. I mean, here's something that might happen, and this is totally out of the blue. I could see him working an angle where he could turn on somebody like Daniel Bryan.
I kind of thought about that too. Because he could work both ways. But honestly, I've been I've been loving this run with him as a babyface.
Oh,
I would keep that going.
And they very well might be. I guess we're going to have to really kind of put our heads together and think, what is he going to do? Who's going to be the next heel that makes sense to go up against Kevin Owens, unless they bring somebody over from SmackDown.
And
or
that's
from
the
Raw.
thing too. With SmackDown, we might just find out too.
Right, and that's something we can look forward to on Friday night. And you mentioned now we've got Sasha Banks is still the champ. We'll find out. If Bianca Belair, I think we can kind of pencil that in as what's going to be the feud for WrestleMania. It's pretty much a given. Rhea Ripley, what is she going to do? I'm interested to see what's next for the road to WrestleMania, but for a stopgap maybe, what about Roman Reigns? What do you think we could see maybe for a stopgap with him before he really starts to go up? Maybe Christian or something, just kind of a filler, if you will.
Yeah, I think this is when you could take a guy that more works in the mid card and get him propelled for a little while and have a cool program with them. That would be a good opportunity for that.
Well, we're going to find out because SmackDown is coming up this Friday. The road to WrestleMania, it started. April is going to be around the corner. 2 months from this week is going to be WrestleMania down in Tampa, Florida. We can't wait for it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, this week in history, and we got a special birthday shout out to a man who, it's funny how fortunes could have changed, how they changed in a drop of a hat, and it happened 28 years ago. We'll talk about that and more. You're watching the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza with my tag team partner Matt Gamlin here on the 12 Ounce Sports and Zingo TV, channel 761.
For the marching exercise, you want to sit down in the center front of your chair, bring your feet shoulder width apart, and form a 90-degree angle with your knees. From here, you're going to lift one foot and raise the opposite arm, just as you march in place in your chair. Make sure you keep that core nice and tight and you breathe into it, and also maintain good posture with a straight back.
And welcome back to the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza Live here on the 12 Ounce Sports Network and Zingo TV, channel 761. Matt, of course, brought to you on the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza guest line, sponsored by Ken Ryan at Voya Financial Advisors. You can call him at 517-420-5669. That's Ken Ryan at Voya Financial Advisors. That phone number is 517-420-5669. Real quick, Matt, you showed me something before we came on the air tonight. Let's take a look at that belt. I love that belt that you got there behind you.
Oh yeah, this was of course, the undisputed championship. It was held by guys like Brock Lesnar, Eddie Guerrero, Triple H when he had it for like a month, and then dropped it to Hulk Hogan. And JBL, of course, had that big reign. And then the last person to hold it, of course, being John Cena before he brought in the spinner belt. This is personally probably one of my favorite designs that they ever did with this championship. But yeah, I got it a few months ago. I'd always wanted one of these replica belts, so I finally pulled the trigger.
Man,
got one of these.
Great investment. Love that belt. Great prop to show on the show. Thank you very much for showing it to us. Well, let's take a look at history, but first, I guess it is history. Someone celebrating a birthday turned 62 years old this week, and crazy to think how the fortunes could have changed. Marty Jannetty, he was with the Heartbreak Kid, and he got thrown through the plate glass window, or on the Brutus the Barber Beefcake, the barber shop. Just think, Matt, how the fortunes could have changed with the Heartbreak Kid being a face getting thrown through there. Could you imagine Marty Jannetty having the run that Shawn Michaels had after that?
Honestly, maybe he could have. Honestly, I don't think he would have replicated what Shawn could do. Shawn was just a once-in-a-generation talent. It's why, despite all these stories you heard about him in the Attitude Era, he still managed to stick around. He was just, despite all the trouble that he could cause, he made up for it with generational talent. I don't think Jannetty, Jannetty was good. Jannetty was, especially as a tag team guy, was great. I just don't think he could have replicated what Shawn did.
No, and they tried to bring him back a couple of times, but it just didn't work. And I agree with you.
He had his demons too, and I think that had something to do with it. It just didn't quite have his head on his shoulders. And hopefully, the more important thing is that he gets past that. But I think that probably had something to do with it too.
Oh, I agree. Looking now at this week in history, a very kind of important day. I almost read it wrong, but it was on this day or this week in 1997 that it was ECW and Paul Heyman announced their very first pay-per-view, Barely Legal. Now that pay-per-view took place, I think it was like on April 13th of 97. But the significance of this date was that they announced it, Matt. And Paul Heyman came out and made just an emotional speech about it. ECW arrived. And what a game changer it was in the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about, I think one of the biggest stories about Barely Legal, too, that you have to look at was about the fact that it almost didn't even happen due to the crucifixion angle that they ran. I believe that's what caused it to nearly happen. It was Raven, of course, crucifying the Sandman, and Kurt Angle actually happened to be in attendance for that. Because he was just coming off that big gold medal win, and he split after that.
Yes, he did. I remember that quite well. And it was crazy because ECW came out, their pay-per-views I think were $8.95. They had them at the Bingo Hall in Philadelphia, and they were the definition of hardcore. And they set the table for, the hardcore division in the WWE. Some of these things you see at indie shows, but man, they were the standard bearer. And Paul Heyman was a genius, man, just an absolute genius.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, his influence, even to this day, is still felt in some way. Just throughout his days at ECW, and when he would go to WWE, working creative on SmackDown, and then working with OVW, and then coming back in 2012, his influence is still just so felt even to this day.
And it's funny. I give him credit. Here's a guy that started out, what was he, 14 years old back in the 80s, sneaking into the matches at Madison Square Garden, writing an underground wrestling newsletter, and finally bugging his way in to get behind the scenes. And then you see him at WCW, or Georgia Championship Wrestling back then, as far as the Dangerous Alliance with that phone. And just the talent that he had, he was never a wrestler, but he was around the business so much even then. And to be able to be smart enough to parlay that into starting his own company, ECW, and, the success that he had.
Yeah, and there were a few people, especially early on in his career, that had the ambition that he had. And he got that from his family, too. And he says that in his DVD. It just talks about how ambitious his parents were. And I think that's where he got it from. And, it was actually, going back to Barely Legal, it was actually the mass transit incident that really ended up getting the pay-per-view nearly pulled. And that was definitely a controversy just as much as the crucifixion.
They definitely pushed the envelope, and I think that also kind of started the ruthless aggression here in WWE. Some of the things that they ran, they felt threatened by it. Not only you had the WCW and the Monday Night Wars, and then you had ECW coming in. Things were crazy in the mid to late 90s, and I think it was the golden age of wrestling. You could say maybe the late 80s, but that 90s run, to me, was what it really got it started.
Oh, yeah, ECW was such an instrumental part in the wrestling getting back into that boom period. You look at what ECW was doing, as much as they valued the blood and guts and hardcore wrestling, one thing that they did have that their fans loved was great technical wrestling and high-flying Lucha Libre, and they were the first ones to bring that in. Yeah. WCW saw that, and they launched their cruiserweight division. How much of that they took from WCW, it's always debated. And then you look at WWE. When they started the Attitude Era, they had more violent, weapon-based matches. Mm-hmm. You could argue they got that from ECW because they had been doing that, and they saw that, that could work. They were very influential.
And again, Paul Heyman, his act, he's smart as hell, and his promos are amazing. And what I like about Paul Heyman, Matt, was he swallowed his pride. He's smart enough to know that he can still make it and do very well in WWE, because that he and Vince did not see eye to eye for a long time, and two gigantic egos. And he's smart enough to know that he could set it aside and, be relevant and make the kind of cheese that he is now. And he's definitely, to me, if he's not the all-time best manager in WWE or pro wrestling history, he's got to be up there in the top 2 or 3.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then the thing is, Vince sees his talent, too. You just know he does. Otherwise, he wouldn't bring him back all the time. He does. And absolutely, Paul Heyman, one of the best managers. But, you can't say manager because he's an advocate.
That's right. He's an advocate.
There you go. Takes the award for best advocate.
He's the best advocate of all time. Definitely. Well, we got a couple minutes left, Matt. You know, one more thing about Paul Heyman too is I love what he's doing right now on Talking Smack.
Yep.
I mean, that interview he had last week. Oh gosh, and the name escapes me. Oh, with the guy that's going after Big E.
Apollo Crews.
Apollo Crews. I love that spot. And the spots he had with Kevin Owens, man. You know, those are awesome. And what a talent, man. What a talent.
That's a show just meant for a guy like Paul.
Indeed. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, Matt. Just we can again tell everybody what we're doing. You know, it's the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza. My sidekick Matt Gamlin is going to be joining me every other week. We're going to run from 8 until 9 Eastern time, and we're gonna get some extra guys on to have a little round table from time to time. There's a guy, Matt, on the network by the name of Philly Pete. He's big into AEW. We're going to get him on the show. We'll have a nice little chat with him. Chris Mancuso is a big wrestling guy on the network. A lot of fun things coming up. We're going to talk AEW in a couple of weeks, Matt. We got to get into Kenny Omega. I love what he's doing right now on AEW. Love the Impact angle. You know, you got, again, Moxley. He's still, to me, one of the best talents. And when it comes to great talent, you can't go without mentioning Chris Jericho.
Yep. Absolutely. Truly, it's insane the way he's been able to reinvent himself over the years and keep himself fresh.
And, you know, my last question tonight about AEW before I let you go, Matt. We see they're teasing the tag team match with Sting. Do you really think I'm interested to see how they protect him when he does step into the ring and what kind of bumps he's going to take, if any.
I could see him just not really taking any. Like, a tag team match is perfect for him in this situation. Especially something where it's billed as a street fight. So there's a lot of different ways you could go with it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, and there's a lot to talk about with AEW, and that's what we're going to do in 2 weeks. Again, we wanted to stay with WWE tonight because just getting over one of their big 4 pay-per-views, setting the table for the road to WrestleMania. That's kind of what we wanted to do tonight. Just kind of introduce you to the format of what we're going to bring to you here on the Wrestling Extravaganza here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Well, Matt, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you for being a part of the show. I look forward to wrapping with you in a couple of weeks with more professional wrestling. And, you know, keep up the great work, and we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This great first episode.
All right. Well, that's going to do it tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Remember, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, keep that head on a swivel. You never know who's going to come through that middle rope and give you the RKO or the Stone Cold Stunner. Captain Lou and Matt saying so long, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks on the Captain Lou Wrestling Extravaganza.